All right. Activity 4.3 is what you folks looked at yesterday. It was classifying the difference between high-level comedy and low-level comedy, knowing what the difference was, seeing examples, starting that explanation process of why something might be low or high comedy. So how is learning about these terms, about that classification process, preparing you to write an essay where you analyze the humorous text? Once you've got your purpose statement written down, you can take your bookmark, flip it to the back side. 4.3 helps you practice 3 out of the 9 concepts that your essay will be graded on. You practice concepts 2, 3, and 4. So 4.3 helps you practice the idea of developing a topic or details. When you receive your text for the assessment, you'll have to analyze whether it's high or low. It helps you practice concept 3 because you will use high or low comedies to help in your commentary and explanation of the humor. And it helps you with concept 4 for including the context. Again, your essay that you write, you're going to be determining whether the piece you're assigned is high or low level comedy. Once you've got that catalog ready to go, you can put the white bookmark away. You can open your Springboard to page 245. If you've got a highlighter, you'll use it for just a small portion. Once you're at 245, go ahead and receive those 3 learning targets. So today we're going to be looking at the first learning target of analyzing an author or comedian's humorous anecdote. Tuesday, you folks are going to work on writing and presenting your own anecdote, and you're going to be analyzing another humorous text. So first question, how many of you know the term anecdote? Nice. All right. Now taking a look underneath Step 1. Step 2 actually gives the definition of an anecdote. So go ahead and make the marks that you see on the screen. An anecdote, it's a verbal and brief story of an incident or an event. And usually anecdotes, they're passed down from family member to family member. They span across multiple generations. And every so often, the details become more and more exaggerated. So it started as a simple story. It turns into something even more horrific and even worse. So thinking of a family story of mine, one anecdote I can think of, I've been told about it from my mom's perspective, from my dad's perspective, from my grandmother's perspective, and of course it's about me, little old me at 2 years old. And 2-year-olds, they're not exactly the brightest creatures in the box. They're kind of learning about walking, moving around, they're kind of floppy. Well, 2-year-old me decided I wanted to be a little bit of a sneaky Pete. And 2-year-old me was also a chunkster that loved food. And I would do just about anything to get whatever food item I could. Now, I have the anecdote of me going into a trash can and stealing a steak bone and a picture of the evidence of me eating a steak bone next to a trash can. But a different anecdote that I think is a little bit more funny was my first trip to the emergency room. At the age of 2, I went to the emergency room 4 times. 4 times. Trust me, my parents thought I was a living nightmare. They couldn't believe that their daughter was this silly and this stupid. So, my anecdote starts with, of course, my parents are out and about doing things, and I was always a troublemaker. I wanted to get my hands dirty, and of course, I was hungry all the time. Wanted food. So little old me apparently teetered into the kitchen. Mom and Dad aren't there. I'm hungry. I want some grub. 2-year-old's going to find a food, right? Couldn't make it happen? Well, magically, I found a way to take a chair, scooch the chair next to the cabinets, right? So I've got the chair next to the cabinets. I start getting up on there. My dad tells me that he was watching me do this. My mom says he's lying. Who knows which part is true, but it was exaggerated that my father was watching. So he claims that he saw me kind of teetering on the chair. Got to get to the cabinet. Got to get to the highest cabinet. I get to the cabinet. I open it up. Plethora of food, right? All kinds of food. I reached for peanut butter. Now back in the 80s, when I was 2 years old, peanut butter was given in giant glass jars. Are 2-year-olds strong? No. But I wanted the peanut butter. So, little Diane puts her hands around the peanut butter jar. Food! Well, the weight of the peanut butter jar was too much for me. I was really close to the cabinet, and I let the peanut butter jar drop my weight down onto the cabinet top. Now, unfortunately, my ear got caught in the door hinge of the cabinet. Well, normal children would cry. I didn't. Not only that, my parents find me with a bloody ear hanging into the actual door hinge, but I have a broken glass jar of peanut butter. And no, I'm not crying. I'm putting my hand in the gobs of peanut butter and eating it, while I have an ear bleeding and hanging onto a hinge of a door. So, that's my family anecdote. Going on to step 3, I'm curious, what humorous anecdotes do you have that you can think of? I want you to take a couple of minutes, and you don't need to write it down, but if you can, share it with your group members. Can you think of a funny anecdote? So take about 30 more seconds, wrap up your stories, your anecdotes. Me too. And 1. I'm promising you'll have more time to tell more anecdotes. Could you not? However, you did get stuck in the chair. That's fantastic. So it's got to be a good story behind that. So, if you could, turn to page 246 for me. And you folks are going to see a chart that we're going to be filling in. Now, the clip we're going to be watching, some of you may have seen it already in 7th grade. If you did, that's okay. Kind of a stinker where it's going to not be like brand new to you, but we're going to be analyzing not the fact that it's monologue, but how there's humor in it and explaining how it's humorous. So the first time that we watch the clip, there's 4 things or 4 topics I want you to look at, and here's the breakdown. You'll see it again after the clip as well. So first off, we're going to look at our comedian's persona. So how is he essentially stepping out of Jerry Seinfeld and turning into someone else? So what does he do with his voice, his mannerisms? In terms of his conversation or his anecdote, what types of people is he talking about? So is he solely speaking about himself, or is he talking about others? For places, what places is he bringing up in his anecdote? And lastly, what's the major event that surrounds the anecdote itself? Right? So let's go ahead and we're going to watch this clip first. If you want to fill in the chart while you watch the clip, go for it. I will give you some time afterwards to complete it. Alright, so going back to your springboard text, looking at page 236, those 4 topics. So what exactly, or how exactly would you describe Seinfeld's personality? We can talk this out together as well if you want to. I mean, do you see and only hear a man in a suit on that stage? What does he do to kind of step away from Jerry Seinfeld, the man? Nothing? Yeah.
He used a lot of facial expressions and changes his voice.
Okay, he changed the volume of his voice. He did some facial expressions. What else?
Changed his tone, like when he was trying to be the little kid version of him, he made it higher pitch, or when he was trying to be the adult, he went real low.
Or if he changed the pitch of his voice, he'd be low as the adult, he'd try and be high as the kid. Get up! Let me stand up! Yeah, next.
He used his own sound effects when he tried to imitate, like, math.
Good, the sound effects of breathing through that really terrible mask. I don't know if any of you have ever had a mask like that. That's kind of one of the worst things ever. It feels like you're going to be suffocating bad. Horrible. How about the types of people that he brings in? Is he only talking about Jerry Seinfeld, the adult?
No.
Who else is he talking about? Yeah, Christian?
The species.
The parental species, nice. He's talking about parents. Who else is he talking about?
Himself as a child.
Okay, Jerry Seinfeld, the kid. Does he try and bring you into his anecdote at all?
Yeah.
He tries. He tries to have you thinking about, hey, do you remember when you would put on that costume? All right, what places does he talk about?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Neighborhood.
Neighborhoods? What about the playground? I like the idea of the kids that are candy morons. Sure, I'll get kidnapped. You got chocolate. I'm there. I think that's pretty funny. And what's the major event of his anecdote? Halloween, 100%. Now, while you're wrapping that series of notes up, right below we've got this relatively large graphic organizer that shows up. And the graphic organizer, it's really big and almost too big for one person to tackle. You're going to be seeing the skit a second time, and you're going to be analyzing one of those 4 boxes on your own. So what you'll do is you're going to divvy up these boxes amongst your group. So someone will tackle 1, someone will tackle 2, and so forth. Now, if you've got more than 4 people, maybe a couple of you pair up and you examine the same question together. But before we kind of figure that part out, let's see what exactly are we being asked to do. So the first question is talking about the comedian's delivery. So what are his movements like? What is his voice like? We could read his anecdote, but instead we see it. So what do we see and what do we hear in terms of facial expressions and gestures and the pacing of his voice? Second question is talking about his transitions. He kind of goes back and forth between the idea of Halloween as a kid, then talking about it to us as an adult. So how does he do that? How does he make the transition happen? Third is bringing up the imagery. So when he's telling us this anecdote, instead of us just seeing a man on a stage in a suit, how does he try and help us get dragged into that world of Halloween and that world of childhood? And lastly, number 4, how does his tone shift? So think about Jerry Seinfeld, the optimistic kid, versus Jerry Seinfeld, the pessimistic adult. All right? So I'm going to give you about 1 minute. I want you to determine at your table who's taking care of which box. All right? 1 minute. Make it happen.